Yo, Greg Moore here. This is Greg Moore's YouTube channel that's like really in the early stages. We've got a long way to go before I even figure out how to adequately run a Zoom meeting. I'm here with my guy, David Veenstra, who's from Arizona State University's master's program, where he's a student learning how to write columns. I've got a bio. I'm going to read a little bit. He's originally from Portland, Oregon, where he was born and raised. Completed his undergrad at the University of Oregon. Means he's a duck. Journalistic mission is to advocate for girls and women in sport, and he has dreams of eventually becoming a columnist, which he believes is the best way to help him achieve this goal. He's writing a column about Jeen-Yuhs, which is how we came to be. We'll talk about it. He's been a fan of Kanye West for all of his adult life, which ain't a whole lot of adult life, but that's okay. But he felt compelled to write about Kanye West and Jeen-Yuhs. And we're going to talk about that a lot. There's one thing that's really important to say. Veenstra's mom, David's mom, has stage 4 terminal cancer. And he wonders how he's going to change when she inevitably passes away. And that's something that we've seen Kanye West deal with. So there's a lot for us to discuss here. Thank you for watching, because there wouldn't be a point otherwise. David, thank you for joining me. Did I miss anything, man? You good?
Oh, you were great. Yeah, it was a great intro.
All right, man. Excellent. Listen, next time I'll get like a sound machine and play some applause for you, get everybody clapping, right? Get everybody like hyped up to talk to you. Let's start with how you came to be a Kanye West fan. Tell me your earliest memory of Kanye West and his music's impact on your life.
Yeah, I was born in 1998, so I don't remember the College Dropout coming out. I don't remember Late Registration coming out. So my first really early memory of Kanye West is Graduation coming out, which came out September 11th of 2007. And you have this big battle between 50 and Kanye West, and kind of, who's going to sell more records with their albums dropping on the same day. And Kanye just totally blew 50 out of the water, and that kind of changed the whole game, kind of changed the whole perception of hip hop music going forward. So that's probably my earliest Kanye memory. And then, of course, there was the tragedy that happened with Donda just a couple months after that. And then we got 808s. And then there's the Taylor Swift incident. I remember my sister, she was a really big Taylor Swift fan at the time. So we were always very respectful to each other, but there were some things that we agreed to disagree on about Taylor Swift and Kanye West. And then my love for Kanye kind of grew from there. I will say that in 2016, when he started aligning himself with Donald Trump, I agree with him on that. So that was kind of the one angle of separation. But other than that, I've seen a lot of myself in Kanye and have been a fan of Kanye for more than a decade now.
I love where you're going with that, man. Let's back up to the battle with 50 Cent, right? To me, that was just such an important moment in hip hop culture. How old were you?
I'm 23 right now.
Okay, so how old were you then? You were about 11, 12 years old?
I would have been about not quite 9 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
For context, I'm 43, so I think I was, man, I would have had to have been in my mid-20s around that time. I'm not going to sit here and try to do the math like on the fly, but I had to have been in my mid-20s at the time. The thing that struck me in the moment was I had been reading about the Harlem Renaissance and the writers of the Harlem Renaissance. And a lot of them, Claude McKay, Zora Neale Hurston, had been heavily criticized for doing stuff like writing in the Black vernacular. Langston Hughes was another. They were writing in the way that Black people spoke and writing in a way that was a different experience of the world. And the old guard, W.B. Du Bois being one that comes to mind, criticized and said, look, Black art, Black literature ought to be propaganda to uplift the Black race. And you guys are actually lowering the standard. And they were like, man, later for you, I'm telling you my experience. And so that to me, it was sort of like 50 Cent versus Kanye West. It was the argument over whose experience and the presentation of that experience, what was going to dominate the mainstream. But you, as a young guy, you're what, junior high, late elementary school, right? Middle school, whatever. coming from Oregon, coming from Portland, you've got a different life experience from me. How did you interpret it right there in the moment? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the shutter shades and kind of Kanye had his clothing line Pastel, which wasn't quite fully developed yet. And I thought Kanye was just like the coolest person I'd ever seen. I thought the music was just outstanding and just so fresh and so new. And graduation is really interesting. I don't know if I would have necessarily been into late registration at the time, just because of the orchestral sound, but graduation was really made for stadiums and just kind of like, going to games like in Portland, going to Trailblazers games and hearing anthems like Stronger at those games and having memories, and Good Life, and just like stadium bangers. And that really drew me to Kanye. Also, just being out and about and going to games and hearing that album played at arenas.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. It's so interesting when I hear you say he was the coolest guy in the world, because it was my experience that Kanye was viewed as a nerd. Kanye was viewed as an outsider. Kanye was viewed as everything that you don't want to be. And Kanye took that negative thing, made it a positive thing. And I don't think hip hop culture has been the same since. I think the hip hop culture has been more inclusive since. I think it's been more open since. Some people will say it's not necessarily a good thing, but that's okay. We could have that argument later. Let's talk specifically about Genius. Let's talk specifically about where you are thinking about taking the column and what ideas you're trying to hone down.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Genius from a fan of Kanye West who is in his early 20s and kind of wanting to kind of figure out who is Genius for. I think that for older generations of Kanye West fans, it might mean something different to them, because really when you listen to the song Last Call, basically the documentary walks you through everything that happens on Last Call. Where for someone like myself who grows up with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, there really is no like, they don't really touch on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And part of that is because Cootie was cut off by Kanye for 6 years, so he didn't have the footage. So he kind of walked himself and showed his own life during that period. So one of the main topics I want to touch on is really who is Genius for, and kind of who are they catering towards?
Tell me who you think.
I kind of think they're targeting the older generation of Kanye fans just because they have so much footage of Kanye signing to Rockefeller and Before the College Dropout and Through the Wire and the car accident and kind of all of that. And because they don't really he didn't have as much footage of Kanye kind of after he really became big, I think they're kind of catering toward the older fans.
Now, you had asked me something earlier. What was it? You were asking me about whether or not we thought it was a fair or accurate portrayal. Tell me about, first of all, let's restate the question. Tell me why you asked the question, and then let's talk through that.
Yeah, I kind of asked the question of, is it a fair portrayal of Kanye? Because really the only thing we know about Kanye is from what we see in the media, and we don't know Kanye personally. And there's a lot that is talked about in the media, and really it's something that you're reading all these headlines, you're reading all these articles about Kanye, and you're wondering what's really going on because you don't know him on a personal level. The media kind of portrays him as kind of this chaotic individual who's out of control, but he says, I'm not out of control, I'm just not in their control, which is a line he said in St. Pablo, but he was saying that really during the Yeezus tour as well, which is where that song lyric came from. And it's something that you kind of wonder, okay, just, for someone who knows Kanye personally, like Cootie does, it's interesting to see Kanye through Cootie's eyes. And that's what really this whole documentary is about, Kanye through Cootie's eyes, and not Kanye through the media's eyes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, do you think that the portrayal of Kanye West was fair?
I think the portrayal was fair. I mean, there could be a lot of things that happen that we just don't know about. Like when Kanye cut Cootie off, maybe Cootie did something, or maybe Cootie said something, and we didn't see that. But I think that in terms of, if you look at other documentaries like The Last Dance, I don't think that was necessarily fair to Scottie Pippen, just because Michael Jordan had kind of executive control over that. So I do think that Genius was fair towards Kanye West. There were some things that it didn't touch on, some things they glossed over, but overall, I think that it was a fair portrayal of Kanye West.
So the thing I worry about when I think about fair versus unfair is that we just don't have all of the information, and we never will, we can't. So what we're really doing is we're really trusting the documentarian, which is why it's so important that documentarians, generally speaking, uphold a certain standard of ethics. That's why journalistic ethics are so important, is because you have to be able to trust the messenger at a certain point, which is why it's so important as a columnist to, this is my opinion, right? Like that's what it is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be objective, but it's important for a columnist to show his or her work. If you don't show the work, then, So look, sticking with Jeen-Yuhs, sticking with Kanye, sticking with the first episode, really did a great job of establishing the relationship between Kanye and his mom. We were discussing earlier, Kanye bought this fancy, expensive angel medallion, fancy, expensive gold chain, probably diamonds. Most parents, in my mind, would be criticizing the kid. Why'd you spend that money? What are you doing? Kanye's mom said, oh, it's beautiful, and you need angels looking over you. She accepted him. She boosted him up, right? And it seems like that's kind of where he drew a lot of his strength from, which is why it's such an important moment when she passes away. And it almost seems like there's a shift. We don't know, right? Like we don't know Kanye. We don't know, but we see that. Tell me, how did that make you feel watching it, knowing that you're going through what you're going through with your mom?
Yeah, kind of seeing Kanye before Donda passed and after Kanye, or excuse me, seeing Kanye before Donda passed and after Donda passed, and really how he changed. Like, I'd say that's terrifying, absolutely, just with my mom going through stage 4 cancer. And I think the thing about Kanye is that he didn't really take time for himself, as we saw in the documentary. His graduation comes out September 11th, 2007. Donda passes November 10th of 2007, so not even 2 months later. And then Kanye starts the Glow in the Dark tour right after that. And he's touring the world and not really taking time to himself. And he's just kind of bottling all these emotions in. So I think that's something I can learn from, like when that day comes, like, take time for myself and not try to overwork myself. And, but I think that, even now that we're, Donda passed in 2007 and here we are, 14 and a half years later, Kanye is still not the same person. And like you were saying earlier, Kanye is not a man who, or at least it seems this way, he's not a man who's at peace. And, it's still, I mean, it's something that, I think that he'll never be able to overcome that. And it's something that'll be there with him, that void, for the rest of his life.
It's really interesting, man, and sad. He does not seem like a man who's at peace based on the documentary. I don't know whether he is or isn't. He might be. It just might have been some moments that they captured. I think about social media sometimes and how you and I, we can show each other little bits of our lives. It's not my whole life. Yeah, I showed you that I ate, I don't know, this big old salad, but did I eat 3 cheeseburgers after that and not take pictures of them, right? Like you can always, it does not seem like Kanye's at peace. It seems like he has everything anybody could ever have aspired to in the profession that he's in. He's got fame, he's got influence, he's got money, he's a billionaire. It seems like he should be in a happier place. And again, the way the documentary frames it, it does seem like it's got a lot to do with the loss of his mother and his larger support network, his larger support system. It makes me wonder, was it worth it? It makes me wonder, would he go back and do it all again? And I don't know, man, what do you think when you think of the result? Like when you think of what it looks like now, and again, we don't know, but we think of what it looks like. Do you think it was worth it?
I don't think it was worth it for Kanye. I think, to quote his Forever verse, he said, "Trade the Grammy plaques just to have my granny back." So I think that Kanye would do anything to have Donda back. And Kanye really, ever since the beginning, and even before Donda passed, you could say that he's always been chasing the next thing, and kind of that void has become even greater. How he got into fashion, was doing internships at Fendi, and then how he started, working in Wyoming and kind of bought so much property in Wyoming and wanted to develop there. And he got really religious, and then he's kind of just always been chasing the next thing to try to fill that void. But that void, I think, will always be there for him. And I don't think it was worth it for Kanye. I think Kanye would trade everything, all the billions, just to have his mom back.
The New York Times recently wrote about grief, and we start by saying Will Smith in his book Will mentions heartbreak. He says that he thinks that heartbreak ought to be treated like a clinical disease. And to me, heartbreak and grief, if they're not the same thing, they're at least cousins, at least, twins. The Times was saying that we're starting to study grief differently, that obviously it hits different people in different ways, but it can last years. And because we see grief as a society as such a normal part of the human condition, we don't often do the best with helping people heal from it because we see it as so normal. And the Times makes a mention of a cliche, the cliche of the widow who wears nothing but black, who completely withdraws from society, who just, she lives in the past and she can't ever get over the sorrow. I am hopeful that through the example of Kanye West, we start to focus on different things. Uh, if he's bipolar, as he mentioned, taking medicine for it, if that is it, I hope that we learn as a society how to tap into the gifts and skills that might be inherent with such a condition. If it's depression, if it's anxiety, if it's whatever, I hope that this documentary and Kanye West's example leads us to a better place of understanding and more compassion. And if it's grief, I hope it does the same thing. What are your hopes? Do you have any hopes for the interpretation of the work?
Yeah, I think compassion is that big thing because really the only person who, after Donda, who might have loved Kanye unconditionally was Kim Kardashian. And then you can see where that's going recently. So I think that Kanye, his friends weren't really sticking up for him, and he had a lot of fake friends and people in the industry who were just using him, which tore Kanye down even more and broke him down even more. So I think compassion is a big thing that, yeah, Kanye made mistakes, but to quote only one, you're not perfect, but you're not your mistakes. And Kanye said some things that he regrets and did some things he regrets, but we're all human and we all need second chances and opportunities to learn and grow from those mistakes. And I think that a lot of Kanye's friends kind of left him and kind of abandoned him. And really, the one person who didn't through many years, Kim Kardashian, she's kind of distanced himself from him now.
So I don't know enough about his marriage to speak on it with any level of confidence. I don't know what happened, what didn't happen. And I know that the marriage wasn't covered in the doc, so I'm going to stay away from it. For me, I think that Kanye, man, he's just cursed with being right. He knew that he could be a rapper slash producer. Nobody else saw it, and he was shunned, but he was right. He knew that the experience of a middle class black kid trapped in between a couple of worlds, wanting to be cool, iced out, sunglasses, wanting that experience because he saw that as the ideal and knowing full well that didn't have anything to do with him, but he still felt that compulsion toward that. He made that okay. We're all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it, to quote a Kanye line. He was shunned and then he was right. Taylor Swift, he might not have delivered that message the best, right? Like nobody's thinking he probably should have jumped up and snatched the microphone from her. But
He
if
was right.
Beyonce has video of the year, she's also got to have the best female video of the year, right? Like she's got to win her category if she wants.
Right.
So I think the thing that I'm going to be taking away from it too, Kanye West was unafraid to call out racism in an era where, around the time he said that George Bush doesn't like black people, when black advocates and activists called out racism, that was the only thing they did. in corporate America, in the workforce, Black people, generally speaking, were trying to pick their shots and were trying to figure out different ways to poke holes in the system so that they could rise. Kanye decided to just take a sledgehammer to the whole thing. 808s and Heartbreaks predicted the next 10 years of music. The guy's just cursed with being right. Again, I'm just hopeful that the real guy has more peace than the guy that we saw in the doc. I'm also hoping that we find ways to draw strength from or lessons from his story. So let's do that. Let's close it here. Give me, because you already said if, you know, when that day comes, when your mom passes, you're going to know to take time for yourself and not push too hard and really honor that grieving process. Give me a couple other lessons you hope to take from this.
Yeah, I kind of hope to take away that, you know, it's okay to be arrogant sometimes. It's okay to believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then really who else is going to
Who
believe in
will?
you? So I think that's, and really even before this documentary, that's I think one of the main lessons from Kanye. Believe in yourself, trust your work. You know, even if no one else believes in you, believe in yourself because that's going to get you a lot of places. So that's the main lesson. Other than that, I would say that in life, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and you're going to lose relationships, and maybe you're going to regain those relationships. But I think that in life, that it's never as good as it seems, but at the same time, it's never as bad as it seems. So it's just about staying focused and staying grounded. And there's going to be lots of highs and lows in life, but just kind of working through those and kind of working towards something. Finding like for Kanye, it's music and fashion and many different things. But for anyone, if you just have one thing that you can focus on and put all your energy into, put all your time into, and that'll, you know, be fulfilling for you, then go for that and really focus all your energy on that. And that'll help you grieving through things and kind of that'll make all the difference. And when you're going through hard things.
You got all that from this?
I did, yeah. I got a lot from this documentary. I really liked it, but
All right, listen, man, I appreciate your time. Is there something I should have asked you about that I didn't?
no, I don't think so. I think we're covered a lot of bases here.
Good? All right, listen, thank you for watching. Thank you, David Veenstra, for coming on for my like non-existent YouTube channel that I'm actually trying to like spin into something. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and whatever else I'm supposed to say. And if you have comments on anything that we said, throw them in the comments. I don't read the comments, but somebody will.
Thank you.
And